to thank everybody for joining us here today. I'm Chris Owens, she, her, and hers, and for the past 12 years I've had the pleasure and privilege of serving as NELP's Executive Director, working alongside, thank you, an amazing group of dedicated and talented people, proud members of the National Organization of Legal Services Workers, UAW Local 2320, who, like you, are devoted to making work better for working people who had been left behind and left out by our society and our economy. I'm up here to give two shout-outs to two amazing and inspiring leaders. The first is Rebecca Dixon, who I'd like to stand. As you obviously know, the NELP Board of Directors has appointed Rebecca as NELP's next Executive Director, and she will formally assume the role in January. All of us at NELP, the members of the board, the staff, the management team, and everyone who knows and has worked with Rebecca for the last 9 years could not be happier and more confident about this choice and about NELP's future and the future for working people in America with Rebecca at the helm. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our morning's keynote speaker, Dee Taylor, International President of Unite Here. We are in Las Vegas because it is the nerve center of worker solidarity, worker organizing, and worker power in America. And that is because of the work of Dee Taylor and his colleagues and members of Unite Here and Culinary Workers 226. For decades, President Taylor and his union have been on the cutting edge and front lines for workers' rights, civil rights, and immigrant rights, fighting to transform low-wage jobs into sustainable careers, to protect millions of immigrants with temporary protected status or DACA status, to organize in the American South and in conservative right-to-work states, to expand healthcare rights and protections for all people, to win contract innovations that protect workers whose jobs are affected by technological change, and new laws to protect housekeepers who are targeted by sexual assault and sexual abuse. To transform worker solidarity into real worker power at the ballot box in Nevada and across the nation, and to advance Black and other leaders of color inside this great union. Through his many years and his many roles at Unite Here, including as international president since 2012, President Taylor has played a signature role in transforming his union into one of the most robust, one of the most dynamic, and one of the fastest growing unions in the United States. We are delighted and grateful he took some time to kick off our conference this morning.
Morning, everybody. I'm awfully glad you got the hell out of Washington, D.C. Besides, the weather sucks there. You got to get into the real world, which is places like Las Vegas and the rest of the country. And I'm from around the D.C. area originally. I'm happy to report the labor movement is finally moving again. And I think in this conference over the next 2 days, you have to talk about every means possible that we advance workers and the communities that they live in that have been left behind. And we're moving again, and you see it in places you never thought. I mean, who the hell thought that West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Arizona would have teacher strikes? Our own union, we had a large strike with the Marriott Corporation in 8 cities last year, and we got the best contract ever in the hotel industry, and I'm proud of that. We've got auto workers moving. We got tech workers who, frankly, probably 5 years ago didn't think they needed a union. Workers are moving. They're craving for action. And the question is, how do we respond to that and what do we do? Now, I look around this room today and I see a lot of young people, thank God. I've never known a movement of old people. A movement has the energy and the new ideas of young people and some wisdom of older folks. That's what a movement's about. If you look at the civil rights movement, I grew up in the South. John Lewis led the march across the Selma Bridge. He was 22 years old. Dr. King led the Montgomery bus boycott. He was 26 years old. You know, often in our society today, we go, well, they're not quite old enough. They're not quite experienced. I go to hell with that. Our generation screwed things up.
True.
I know. So we're counting on the younger folks to kick our ass and get moving again. I really mean that. Now, this conference should be about going on the offensive. We play defense all the time. And you look around this room, we have new faces. We'll have new experiences, new ideas. And I think we got to be bold. We tend to be pretty conservative. We're afraid of losing. We're afraid of this. Folks, every great movement had defeat. I don't mind defeat, because we always learn a lot more in defeat than victory. You know, when you win, everybody goes, oh yeah, well, that was the greatest thing ever. When you lose, you want to know why you lost. I hate losing. But I think we've got to be bold in this day and age. Now, our union, I'm proud of Unite here. You know, our slogan is one job should be enough. It used to be in America, the American dream, is if you had one job, that'd be enough to provide for yourselves and your loved ones. Nowadays, people have to work 2 or 3 jobs. They just survive with that. So what does that mean? You can't spend time with your kids or your loved ones, and when you do, you're exhausted. You can't go to a parent-teacher conference. You can't coach a little league team. You can't do all the things that are part of the American dream. Now, we could easily, in our union, say, well, you know, Trump's elected, there's a bunch of right-wing reactionaries, we're just going to crawl into a shell. There has never been a better time to organize, ever. There's never been a better time. Over the last 5 years, our union organized over 62,000 folks, most ever. This year, we're organizing 20,000 new folks. And we're not organizing just on the damn coast. We think the best place to organize is in the South, actually. Because I have said this, if you change the South, you change America. Because what has happened is the South has come to the rest of the country. Whoever thought that Michigan would have right to work? Wisconsin, right to work. Because the South went to them. We didn't go to the South. So I've challenged in our union, we have to go big, we have to go bold, and we have to go in unfamiliar territory. You know, Mississippi and Louisiana is not the most union-friendly place. But what we have found is workers are getting screwed everywhere. No surprise. They want to have a better life for themselves and their families. Why should we be afraid if the workers aren't afraid? So we've got to go to the South. We've got to be smart about it. We've got to be bold about it. And in our union is a minority-majority union. Just in my local here, my original local here, I think about where we would be if the current immigration policies were in place back then. Because the leader of this local here, Gioconda Arguello-Klein, I recruited her in 1988. She was a political refugee from Nicaragua. She now was a housekeeper. She now runs the largest local in United here of 60,000 people. If Giaconda had not been around, where would we be? Now, the union movement, I got involved. I looked around. You know, I did politics for a while. I'm a lot older than everybody in this room probably. And I said, you know, those Democrats, they're really not going to do crap if we don't kick their butt. And we got to push them from the bottom up. So I got involved in the labor movement. Now, the labor movement has its deficiencies. I think without any question, I feel proud of our union because I think we're probably the most democratic grassroots union in the country. We have elections every 3 years. A lot of nonprofits don't have that. So often nonprofits point at unions how corrupt we are. I just say, well, you should get democratic like we are. Every 3 years you have an election. You got to stand, whether you are going to be with the workers or not. Fully transparent. Everybody knows where every dollar goes, and they should know. It's their money. I challenge every nonprofit to do that. But part of this, as I said, our members do not live at the union hall. They don't live at their place of work. They live in communities. So the work that you do and the work that we do often intersects, thank goodness, on immigration. I think we have led the labor movement in the best contract language on immigration. But that's not where it stops. When Trump was talking about taking away TPS, we were on Capitol Hill in force often. A lot of legislators had no idea what TPS was. They knew DACA, they knew the Dreamers, but not TPS. And as you know, a lot of people from TPS are from war torn countries like El Salvador or Somalia or Sudan. We have made TPS our mission because our Haitian brothers and sisters, our Salvadoranian brothers and sisters, our Sudanese brothers and sisters, etc., if we don't fight for TPS, we don't fight for the Dreamers, who are we? Now, there's not going to be an immigration reform bill in the next year or two. We all know that. But it is up to us to put this in the forefront of the election, to put what immigrants really have done in this country and continue to do in this country. Because I know right here in this town, if we did not have immigrant workers, this town would shut down tomorrow without any question at all. LGBTQ. Everybody thinks, oh, well, the law now protects them. In 24 states, you got no protection on the job. That's right. The only protection is going to be through the union contract. And so often when we're working with a community now that's so targeted, I think the only solution is unionization on the job. Because as you know, with what's coming down in the courts, et cetera, about discriminating on religious preference and all that stuff, I know what all that's about. I think our work in the LGBTQ is essential. You know, in January, there's a big change conference in Dallas. I hope some of you are going to be involved, because the LGBT community is under direct attack, and we've got to defend them, stand for them, and fight for them like they fight for us every single day. Affordable housing. There is not a nice urban place in America that has affordable housing for workers. And they're getting crushed even more by the proliferation of Airbnb. I know some of you use Airbnb. Just remember, when you use that, that unit often has been taken off the market, so affordable housing becomes less and less for workers. The government has abandoned affordable housing. We've got to fight for that, because I was just talking to Sam from our local in Washington, D.C., where people now are living out in Loudoun, Prince William County. I can give you 15 examples of that. I'm up in the Bay Area often. Folks who want to work in San Francisco now are living so far out it takes them 2 hours each way just to get to work. That's not sustainable, and you're not going to see your loved ones that way. And we're fighting that. We think affordable housing is essential for the quality of life of workers and people who actually live in the city. Women. Candidly, we were Me Too before Me Too. We were the first union and the only union to fight for safety buttons back in 2012 in New York City when Dominic Strauss-Kahn attacked our housekeeper in a New York hotel. A woman of color who they didn't want to believe. Our union defended her, kicked the crap out of him. In our contracts throughout now, we insist that every single housekeeper, anybody in a precarious situation, has a safety button. So if you have a predator come after you in any way, shape, or form, or a direct threat on your safety, you can instantly get access to get help. Candidly, I think that's essential. And also, when we organize non-union hotels all the time, our industry is rife with sexual harassment. It's unbelievable, actually. It's disgusting. You think in this day and age people would have common decency about that, but they don't. The work that you do on sexual harassment in your cities is absolutely essential for workers to be safe on the job from predators that lurk out there all the time. So I applaud you for your work on that, and we got to keep it up. And then finally, I think the greatest civil rights issue today is actually what's going on, people who have been falsely imprisoned. There's no question about that. Now, the Innocence Project we work closely with. We passed legislation that had been stalled in New York. We passed legislation in Nevada, which is not the beacon of liberalism, folks, that if people have a whole series of things of how they got incarcerated, falsely incarcerated, one, they get compensation. They quit having these interviews without any video or record of it, just word of mouth, on and on. I hope that the work that you do in your respective states will deal with this question of falsely incarcerated people, so justice is given to people who are predominantly people of color and who are poor, whether they're white, black, or Latino, or Asian. I really think that's a civil rights issue of our time, and I hope you are part of that. Now, finally, John F. Kennedy said something that's so true. He said, "Victory has 1,000 fathers, defeat is an orphan." And on the political front, I think the work that we do, we often look at that shiny object of Washington, D.C. D.C. is a cesspool. It is. The federal government and the legislators have been bought and sold often by big money, and so nothing really gets done that's meaningful except to help the very rich. Where the action is on the state legislature and in cities. Let's concentrate on state legislators and municipalities to pass meaningful change so we can actually help people who need the help. And then finally this. I appreciate the compliments about Nevada. Yeah, we've changed Nevada here. We're changing Arizona. We got rid of Arpaio finally in 16. But remember, we took a real run on him in 12 and lost. And I always think the measure of somebody's not if you lose, but if you get up after a loss. So we got rid of Arpaio. We want to change Arizona to make the electorate reflective of the population like California changed back in the 80s. But I'm asking all of you, we're moving. Nevada, Arizona, and there's one more state that we're concentrated on in 2020. And that's the great state of Florida. Florida is a 1% state. Obama won by 1%. Trump won by 1%. In 18, Andrew Gillum lost by 34,000 votes. 1% of the electorate that votes is about 100,000 people. That means you got to change about 60,000 people. I'm going to give you a few stats to get you excited about Florida. One, just in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Orange County, which is Orlando, there's 450,000 voter restoration eligible people to register to vote based on the thing that was voted last year. 450,000. Another fact, Florida has a big mail ballot. In 2018, 180,000 Democratic mail ballots never got returned. Final fact, just in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Orange County, there's between 300,000 and 400,000 eligible African American and Latinos who could vote who are not registered. Those are facts. So it is doable, but we got to be on the ground doing it. We're on the ground now. We're registering people in Orlando and in Miami-Dade, and we're engaging them. I would strongly urge you, if you're interested in changing this country in 2020, that you join us in Florida. I say that not as a pitch about a certain candidate. I don't think this election is about a candidate. I think it's about the values and decency of this country. And this country has a lot of faults, a lot of problems. But I do know this, that if you engage with people, and you talk to people, and you meet them where they are, we can win folks over. So I really applaud the work that you do. We're really glad you're here in Las Vegas. Remember to tip the housekeepers and tip all the folks. You're going to have a great panel up here, and I really want to